Call this series of work sessions to order. We'll start going around the table, identifying ourselves. Start with you, Julia.
Julia Tucker, Assembly Council.
Patrick Flagle.
Ernie Hall.
Amy Domboski.
Bill Evans.
Elby Greg Johnson.
Dick Training. This work session are bond proposals. We've set a time structure up. The first one's going to be facilities capital improvements. You've got 10 minutes.
Go for it, guys.
Time's right.
Time's up.
Time's running, Ron. On up.
Hi, it's Ron Thompson, the Public Works Director. On the facility side, we have basically 4 proposals. Anchorage Golf Course, just doing major maintenance is required on the facility to upgrade it, to keep it up, so small amount, $500,000. Library automated handling system to go along with and enhance and move on with the library rehab that we're moving forward with. It's the next phase and something that needs to go into it as well. Chester Creek Sports Complex, it's a matter of expanding the parking lot, making everything work together better, access, parking arrangements, along with moving the ability, if we have a legislative request in for the facility itself to change Mulcahy Stadium. This is kind of goes in conjunction with it, with a lot of the matching that we're asking for to move forward with enhancing that whole complex and making it work better. And then the facility safety code upgrades, that's just different buildings throughout our inventory that we have to always be upgrading on our safety means. It's a continuous request. We usually always are going forward with safety measures to clean and upgrade our facilities. We have so many facilities out there. We always have to enhance and move those forward. So pretty standard request for big issues that we need this year on the facility side.
Question from assembly members. Mr. Flynn, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Mr. Thompson, could you restate the amount that you are requesting, or the bond request has for the Chester Creek complex?
The grant request or the bond request?
Both.
The bond request is 1.5 million. The grant request I think we put in is 9.995 million.
Okay. And Dennis, I'm sorry I interrupted you from your I'm not really optimistic that we'll see a lot of legislative match this year. And as we were just discussing, the 1.5 in the facilities bond for the Chester Peak complex is accompanied with a $9.9 million request.
Patrick, could you speak a little louder, sir? My hearing aids isn't working today.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. My question is thus. Given what I believe to be a low likelihood of the legislative match coming through for this specific request, if we put this on the bond and it is approved by the voters, can we reallocate the money to other public facilities?
Most of the bonds have language like that, and if you look in the ordinance, we should be able to find that language and see what it says. If you look at what would be the third full paragraph on page 2 of the AO, starting on line 20, it talks about if the project becomes impractical, you're not required to accomplish such portions and can apply the bond proceeds as set forth in the section. And then it goes down to talk about applying the remaining proceeds to other. I'm looking at the road and drainage one, I'm sorry, but the same language should be in the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it would be at 14, the one we're talking about right now, but yeah, I understand. Okay.
Standard language is that other road and storm drainage capital improvement project within the Anchorage service area at the sole discretion.
Okay, so let me get a little more specific with your discretion, Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
I'm presuming there's no way in heck we're getting $9.9 million for the Chester Creek sports facility from the legislature this year. I don't object to this money being in this bond, but when that doesn't happen, what I want to know is, and you don't have to answer me now, you can get back to me later, and Mr. Hall and I say, you know what, we're going to redirect that money to repair some bridges on some of our trails.
I understand the question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Good questioning. Any other questions for Mr. Thompson? Thank you. Let's move on to ARTSA. This is AO 2015-4. Ron, you want to talk about ARTSA, or who's talking about ARTSA?
I would talk about ARTSA as well. I mean, if you look at
This is a bond
the
amount to
list
be
of all the
exceed
different
17
projects,
million.
typically we identify several projects. Almost all the projects have to do, the main reason why we do bonding is because we can bond for both we can bond for the maintenance of a project when we get a grant. So we tie these bond values with a lot of the grant requests that we either have money for already or we're requesting additional funding for. Some of these are ongoing things that we do each year. Railroad crossing rehabs, we have to do those all the time. Signal system maintenance and system improvements. Standard specific, a lot of open-ended pedestrian safety rehab matching programs. I mean, most of the grants we get require matching funds. And then also when we get those, it's very important that if we get a new project and we get the funds on the grant level, we better be able to long-term maintain them. So we put them in the bond request to make sure that we can bond the maintenance in the long term. And so that's why you see in a lot of the arts on the right-hand side, it's the maintenance number compared with the request. Flooding, glaciation, drainage matching program, same thing. A lot of different open-ended ones. Then as you get down further in the back of the bond request, we get into more specific projects. And those are specific projects. Most of the time, when they make it on this level, we've already had some funds in the system. We've been designing them, moving them forward, and then now they're ready to go to construction. So we're asking for the construction money as well as the maintenance and the matching money here in the bonds of the projects that are steadily moving forward. So, you know, without going into specifics, I mean, it kind of, most of them are pretty self-specific with the names and everything. There's too many of them to probably go over each of them, but I can answer any questions that you have on those. But it really is critical that we include projects because then we can get the maintenance money for the long term on these projects based upon the amount of work we're doing in the main project.
Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron, this is a homework assignment, not a question. On Spenard Road reconstruction phase 2,
Yeah.
would you please coordinate with Mr. Lyon in our transportation planning group and get us information as to whether this is sufficient to move this project forward given the expectation of a mass allocation?
Okay.
And I'm asking on behalf of Tim Steele.
Right.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Amy?
Thank you. Ron, I'm looking at Muldoon Elementary School pedestrian safety phase 3. I know Anchorage School District usually has and requests money for elementary or school safety. So what we're asking for $750,000 here, and do you know what they have in their coffers for pedestrian safety near their schools?
I don't know what they have, but that's typically on their property. So we do with the connections, we work with them closely. So we work with all the connections in the surrounding area to make sure that whatever their plan and their site is, that we tie together. So obviously, for it to get here, we've been working very closely with them. They have a project slated for whatever they're doing, we're going to tie to that. Typically, unless they put a request that's off-site that ties to what they have now. I don't know exactly if the school district per se, I can find that out.
Yeah, I just want to see how we're complementing,
Right.
making sure we're not duplicating efforts.
Yeah, yeah, we don't, yeah, I can get you an answer
That'd
and
be helpful.
get you something.
Thank you.
Any questions from Assembly members? Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me preface my comments with, please, don't get nervous, just hear me out. I had a dream about this last night. I really did, Barry, you were in it. So, what a new year. Mr. Traney and I are bringing forward a substitute version of the Worksession-Bond to add $4.5 million for Sylvan Drive. And a little bit of history, okay? We've been working on this project with our constituent who's in the audience for 3 years. And the first year we weren't successful. We took it to Juneau with us. First year we weren't successful. Second year we were successful, and we got $2.5 million. And I think the design work is done. Lots of preliminary work is done. The project is shovel ready. It's in the legislative program. Mr. Flynn continues to remind us that we're not going to get any money, and we all know that. And so we thought about it. We were already scheduled to go to Juneau. We're going to go anyway, but we are really, really hopeful that this can be added to the bond. It's $4.5 million, and the cost, okay, is $1.54 for a $300,000 home to the citizens for 20 years. And with that said, if you would allow, Mr. Chairman, I'd like for Cindy to make a statement. 2 minutes, that's
You
it.
can have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, Cindy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Thank you for the 2 minutes. I'm Cindy Squire. I'm a homeowner in the area and an advocate for the entire neighborhood. I've been working on this project in excess of 5 years. We were thrilled in 2012 when we received the first $1.5 million to get this project completed. 2014 is the 30-year anniversary of this work being promised and having been funded back in '84 with municipal ordinance and the whole bit. And we now have gone 30 years without the work having been accomplished. So we were thrilled to get the first $1.5 million to get everything done up to the construction phase. And now we are going to go to Juneau and hope, attempt, but after hearing the state of the budget addresses and things that are going on, we're hoping that this $4.5 million can complete this project through construction and get it done. Huge rally this summer. An entire neighborhood attended. I would be very excited if you would let me send you links of the news story so you can get the back history on it and see we had 85 people attend the rally just on one sunny afternoon alone. Huge news coverage, the whole bit. So I'm hoping that this will solve the problem for the neighborhood. People want it. It's the only access back to their homes. It's the only way they can drive to their homes is in and out this corridor street. And they're very frustrated and don't know how to ask for it. So the rally was a great funneling channel to get people aware and get them behind the project. They want it, they're ready, they're asking for a champion. So please, if it's at all possible, we would really appreciate getting this project completed, finished, the whole bit. I'm sure I'm in excess of 2 minutes. Thank you very much for your help.
And if I can follow up with just one comment, okay? And I know this firsthand from the Alexander Avenue project, but when you fix drainage problems in one area of the city, it affects the rest of the community in one way or another. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from Assembly members?
It would be helpful to have a little descriptor of the project itself, just so we know
Would you
exactly.
please send your
She's probably got a
PowerPoint
description.
to all the Assembly members?
Yep, I would be happy to.
She's the Energizer Bunny Rabbit.
That's why we only gave
We
her
were
2
down there
minutes.
with her, she talked to 12 legislators in one afternoon. Mr. Flynn?
But is there an RID associated with this?
No.
What they've got is, there's no drainage available, and so the road floods, and the homes flood. And the city, when they accepted this city road years ago, should have brought up to standards, said they would never happen. And so now we've got to go lay clean up. And I've asked for a special Assembly meeting tomorrow at noon, Monday at noon to introduce this. So you'll see a memo coming out to you guys. And we got to introduce it. You'll see we're going to be asking that. Just come on in. It'll only take about 5 or 10 minutes when we're done with it. Anything else, Ellie?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's move on to Parks and Rec.
Thank
Mr.
you, Chair.
Roth.
I appreciate your time.
You can't hide, John.
Yeah, okay.
date, whatever one they're talking to, if it's just pointless. That'd be helpful.
John is 2015 2. Should be 14B, I think.
Perfect.
John, you're asking for $2.750, $2,750,000. So what are you going to get for that if we send that to the voters?
So we're going to get, sort of Mr. Flynn make a comment, reference Mr. Hall's cooperation as well. And first 1.5 million, of course, is to address the bridges. And that process right now has been tasked with Russ Oswald. He's working with Stantec, formerly USKH. We're hopefully within the next month, we're going to have design and cost criteria. And that's going to be the basis for how these funds would be spent. And we're hopeful that the design comes back in and not an elaborate form, but something that's more of a drop-in, universal, that we'll be able to utilize at the locations. We know that there are 5 bridges. One's already down. There are 4 additional with the same construction methods that have imminent reason for failure. And that's going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when, and we need to be prepared, and so that's the task we're moving forward with, and that's why the 1.5 is on there. The other 500,000 next is for the completion of the Anchorage football stadium. We received a grant a couple years ago, 1.5 million. The turf has been completely redone. Actually, we are repurposing the turf that we took out and using it in the community. So it's not a lost dollar, but this is going to be for the completion of the locker room concession, officials, bathrooms. It is very deficient, and we didn't realize the nature of the condition of the building until we got the assessment. And in fact, it's not even seismically sound, so it does have to come down. And so the balance of the funds that were from the 1.5 million AFS grant were not sufficient to handle all of the demolition, utility work, and the sub-base, and that's the reason for these funds also being asked to go with the additional funds we have in hand. And then the last one is for the Greenbelt trail resurfacing. We've already seen the first mile done this year. We're continuing forward, and the next element will take us going east. Permitting is almost completely done. Corps of Engineers has signed off. Design is well underway, and we anticipate having that ready to bid within the next month.
Mr. Flynn?
How many bridges are we getting? If I knew the cost, I would tell you that, Pat. I would. I don't know. That's the one piece right now that we are waiting for from Stantec, is to know, and Russ is working with them very actively, and we're pushing them for a response so that in fact we can put that dollar figure out, and so when people ask that question, we can tell them we can do 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever that number is.
My understanding is the bridge at 2nd and
Christensen.
is potentially an ARSA project as opposed to a Parks and Recs project. But looking through the ARSA proposal, it's not in there. Is that correct?
When this was being formulated, I didn't know whether that had been validated or not. If it is within, then we would ask to cooperate with them, and we would move it through the next priority. But I don't believe ARTS had put money in specifically because I don't know if that question had been answered at that time.
How close are we to having an answer?
George? Somebody?
Well, we'll get the answer about the ARTSA piece. I didn't believe that it was part of ARTSA. But I do know that they are trying to get the engineer, Stantec, to come up with the final solution.
I'm not worried about that piece of it. I'm worried about whether, where we put
Okay, I understand that, but right now it's in Parks and Rec, okay? That's where we're asking for the funds. I don't know if it's an ARTSA eligible project or not, I will find out.
I'd like to know that, and I'd like to know that before Mr. Trainee introduces his S version. So that if we want to take that up,
So we'll find out.
Mr. Flynn, which S version?
Probably ours.
you're.
Oh, ARSA?
Ours,
Of the ARTSA bond.
Yeah.
Because if we want to put it in the ARTSA bond, we
Yeah.
should put it in the ARTSA bond when you introduce.
That's true.
the S
At the
version.
same time.
That'd make me feel better.
Okay, that's all
I
we
want
want.
to make you feel better, sir.
That's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Ms. Dombrowski,
Yep, you got it.
any other question on Parks and Rec bond? Yes, Mr. Flynn?
No.
Sorry. You used to sit there.
At least you can call me Mr. Boston.
None up here. What, are we putting back steel bridges? We put it back with the bridge. What are we doing?
I anticipate that we will be going with the steel structure, something we've been receiving a lot of input from across the country, across the nation. We have looked at 6, 7, 8 different models. I don't believe that anybody is looking at a wood structure as an option, but we are looking at a steel span structure, but I can't tell you the final design or what the cost would be.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On a side note, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and your staff because we had a really unsafe bridge in Campbell Park over there, and working with Josh, we were able to kind of fix it a little bit now, and then we're going to do the final fix in the spring. And I really appreciate it. Our constituents are thankful. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next one is going to be a fire. This is AO 2015-3. Chief, good to see you.
Thank you.
It's pretty standard for us. We run through Indian companies, we run through Medicaid, so this year we're asking for 3 additional Indian companies and 2 Medicaid's. Actually, the Indian companies, we need them, I think, very badly because of our reserve apparatus. Well, put it bluntly, they're not very good shape. They're very expensive to maintain. If we have a major event, we'll get it on the street, but it costs money. I guess I don't know how else to put it.
Amy?
Thank you. So, Chief, I know I recognize that AFD runs far more calls than Chudiak does, but I know Chudiak's Board of Supervisors has taken the task of refurbishing their engines. I'm assuming you're asking for new engines because maybe that's not possible. Can you speak to that? Maybe I'm speaking out of turn.
No, not at all. We do run the wheels off our engine companies. As you know, they also run with our medic units, so it's just not responding to fire incidents. We do refurbish our engine companies as we can, but they get to a point to where it's just not worth putting any more money into. And quite honestly, that's where we're at.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions from the fire chief? Thank you for being here, sir. Next one in front of us is Safety and Public Transportation, 2015-5. We're asking for $6,760,000 in the bond.
This is a combination of several different things. Meeting with, when setting up these bond proposals, I work with all the different departments of their needs, and then, so part of the A-Warren piece is, part of it's Public Works, but it supports the police and fire, so it's a necessary upgrade to fix the consoles of the program that we just put in place. The E91 upgrade, same type of thing, we help working with them, but it's an upgrade for police and fire. Both of those are very much needed, and in going through it, everybody thought they were much more important than any other areas to put money in, that these are areas that we work with different agencies throughout the state, federal, to make things work, and all these consoles are going to become obsolete because of the fact that we renewed all of the A-Warn software. Now the consoles was the next piece, so we always knew that this was coming. And then obviously there's a police fire ambulance in here, replacement, and some of the other things that they put forward, but these ended up being a very high necessity in the process of the bonds and the best way to obtain that. And I'll let you go over a lot of the changes.
So this bond is area-wide, public transportation is area-wide. We use the bond funds to match our federal highway program and our federal transit program. It's a 80%, it's an 80% return. This is the 20%. The bus stop improvements is really ADA improvements all across Anchorage. The capital and heavy maintenance is similar to Assemblymember Dubowski's approach to what the fire chief just mentioned. We use a lot of that to refurbish our heavy fleet. It's an allowable expense rather than buying entire new equipment. If we're going to, and the vehicle buy would probably be, or any improvements to our existing fleet and our technology, we do that as well. And I think the two key things is the transit centers. We have in our AMATS tip some money to start the process for the Midtown Transit Center, so we need some matching funds to do that, and that is on here. And then the last one, we will need to use some funds to replace some Anchor Rides vehicles. So that's the balance of the transit portion. It's $250,000 out of the $6.7 million.
Mr. Flynn. You had a look on your face, sir.
I kind of breathe this stuff from AMAS, so I don't need to say anything.
Amy?
So when we're talking about, thank you, when we're talking about the potential money for the potential relocation, considering the climate we're in, I just don't, how much are we talking that you're potentially going to be putting forward to that idea?
So the amount of federal money that we would have, the match plus the total would be about $300,000. And it's for site selection, site investigation, to look at least a minimum of 3 sites in the Midtown area. And
So is that, okay, so am I reading it right that 45,000 that would be municipal contribution, the rest would be federal dollars? And those federal dollars we already have? Thank you.
Mr. Steele?
I suspect in determining the need for the Midtown Transit System, we have done some preliminary work on how we're going to change the bus routes around town.
part of the RFP includes that process.
Okay, so we don't even know if we need it, if it's going to be more efficient, if it's a good idea.
We don't have all of the answers, that's correct. That's the study.
Did we talk to community councils that would be affected as to how they feel about having a transit center moved in their area?
Mr. Tranny, I've visited the Midtown Community Council at least 3 times, and the last time that I was there, they put together a draft resolution in support of doing a Midtown Transit Center. They're very interested in being transit-oriented development, having some kind of housing component nearby or part of. So they are well aware of what we're doing, and they do have some questions which we'll address as part of this effort.
I was just going to ask if you could hang out off all the, I have some questions for you off the.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you. That completes everything we've got scheduled to speak to us on this issue. Our next work session starts at 12.